Hey Internet, what's going on? Aaron here, and today it's an astronaut's guide to life on Earth. This is a book for people who like NASA, space travel, astronauts, that kind of thing, because, well, it's perfect. Chris Hadfield was a fighter pilot and then became the first Canadian to set foot in space, as well as did a few shuttle missions and served as commander of the International Space Station, or ISS, for one cycle. When you read this book, you learn about his career and how he became an astronaut, also why he wanted to be an astronaut, but also his general philosophy about being productive, diligent, living a purposeful life, and a meaningful life. There's this recurring theme. There's a few recurring themes in the book. One of them is to always be learning. You're always a student kind of thing. Another one is to sweat the small stuff. Many times for astronauts, at least, and in some other cases as well, the things that end up causing big problems are small details that were left unchecked. Some of the other themes are to persevere, as well as like your mindset is everything. There's challenges that Chris Hadfield had that really just were overcome partially because of perseverance, but partially because his mindset allowed him to do so. And of course, the challenges. This book is about challenges, really, and they are explained magically in just vivid, explicit detail. It's amazing. Some of the challenges are how to get an interview with NASA, passing the interview, handling the work-life balance with being an astronaut and not being able to see your family as much as you might like to. The challenges of actually being out there in space. There's a famous one, and you can find it on YouTube, I think as well. You know, he's out there, and he cleaned his visor with he wiped some anti-fog on it as a preparation, but he didn't like clean it off. And so while he was in space, it kind of like got into his eyes, and he had to do a mission like without being able to see, and he's on the phone with mission control at the same time, and how does he deal with that? And then there's the challenges of how he gets along with his the other astronauts that are there with him, or while he's a student in that environment as well. It's very cool. There's just so many great parts that you'll want to just keep reading straight through, because it's just, there's so much, like, not suspense in a Hollywood way, but it's just genuinely that interesting. And the book is cleverly split up into 3 sections: pre-launch, liftoff, coming back down to Earth. Pre-launch and liftoff are most of the book, like at least 3/4, maybe like 95% even. Coming back down to Earth is just a little section that will talk about, while you're in space, there's zero gravity. So coming back down to Earth, your body needs to adjust to that. And it's kind of a bittersweet, because you're happy to finally, be able to like get out of all your space stuff and shower and just sleep. That's what you want to do, but your body is killing you. It's hard even just to stand up. And NASA's there, and they want to take all these samples, because it's very important to study the body after it's been under zero gravity for a long time. And then your family's there, and they want to see you too. It's very interesting. But really the book is about the pre-launch part, where you learn about Chris Hadfield's growing up, and how he got into being an astronaut, and then how that started off. So how his training went, what he had to learn, how it is inside of NASA, which is very interesting. You don't normally get an insight as to how that inner workings of NASA is typically going on. And then liftoff is the real exciting part of the book. Pretty much the first half I'm just reading like, okay, well, when are we going to get to the really good stuff? It's still interesting, but the really good stuff is when he's actually in space. And that's where you learn about how they conduct experiments, how they go to the bathroom, how they shower, how things behave differently in zero gravity, how he communicates with his family, how he plays his guitar. He was making like YouTube videos and sharing that with people, and that was building a lot of exposure, which I think is one of the motives for actually making this book, because people find it super interesting. I mean, myself included, just the whole process. So that's a liftoff. And then, well, I mentioned coming back down to Earth. for me, reading this book was phenomenal. I find that it's a whole new world that I've never really known much about. You often hear about astronauts, but you probably never actually meet one. And being able to learn about the entire life of an astronaut is super cool. Some of the things I learned that were pretty unexpected were, maybe unexpected to me at least, were that, the biggest challenges really were about how you persevere and conduct yourself, as well as, I'd say, often if people if people want to be an astronaut because they want to be up in space, then they're doing it for the wrong reasons. Most of your life as an astronaut is spent studying and practicing and training and doing stuff with NASA to prepare for that final step where you get to go up in space and do it. And that's a very small sliver of the whole thing. So if that's all you're in it for, it's definitely not a good career path. And then I think the other part would just be, how the environment is there, what's actually going on. So that was pretty sweet. And I think on that note, I would add that, maybe a question for the day, let me know what you think in the comments, with space travel, should that only really be happening the way NASA is doing it, with their own regimented routines, and they have it this way? Or does it make sense that we have things like SpaceX and Blue Origin to actually maybe compete and even take over NASA and start being industry leaders in that field? Let me know what you think. It's kind of an interesting one. We've seen a lot of interesting progressions with NASA, but they also have very different objectives than these privatized companies do. And I'd be very interested to see a book kind of like this one, but for astronauts that are not doing it as part of NASA in the future. That might be an interesting one. Also, if you want to pick up a copy of this book, just check out a link below. It's Amazon, probably the cheapest place you can get it. By probably, I mean most 99% definitely. And if you do read the book, please tell me what you think about it. I had a lot of fun reading it. It was recommended to me by a friend, and now I'm recommending it to all of my internet friends.